To hear the full episode, become a patron at patreon.com/deathpanelpod.
But I think the question that keeps coming back to me as I read the book, right, is that it's the development that you talk about has really created a new field of power, right? It is scrambled people's ability to act collectively, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's turned because these organizations, community foundations are really where the resources are, right? Not necessarily in local governments. It's turned public attention to them as solutions as opposed to government. That tends to scramble collective action. But it also, it distances, I mean, the resources are in these communities, but other things aren't, like regulatory authority, for example, still remains, firmly within the power of the local or sometimes is preempted by the state government. But but that's often the switch you need to flip. And the other thing that I think is interesting is like the extent to which, and maybe you can talk about this, like the kinds of solutions that now naturally enter into the conversation have changed. The thing that you open the book with is talking about this social impact bond. And it's just, I wonder if you could actually go into it, because I think it matters that the solutions that are on the table, to these problems have a way of, while they don't solve the problem, obviously, they perpetuate this idea that the solution is always just around the corner, and that like, give us 5 more years, give us 10 more years, give us $30 million more, and give us an army of evaluators and and like out of work social scientists to do the evaluation work, and we'll solve this goddamn problem. So can you like talk? I mean, like, there's a solutionism that is very rooted in some of these projects. But and so I wonder if you could talk about like that aspect of it as well.
The solutionism of it. Yeah, it seems both so rooted in an optimism and a pragmatism about how to do something against what seems like inevitable odds. But no, social impact bonds are this wildly complex and yet also so simple. Sometimes called pay for success programs, right? So the government vows to pay a nonprofit for its services if the desired and sort of contractual outcome is achieved. And in the time between when the nonprofit provides a service and the government says, aha, we've done it. We've, employed this many people, kept this many people out of the carceral state, et cetera. Who puts up the dollars? Private financiers. So Goldman Sachs is the sort of key financer, along with some foundations. They sort of put up a loan and say, okay, the government's going to pay us back, but we'll front the money to this nonprofit. It's these wild systems and tons of lawyers. And as you said, Phil, lots of social scientists evaluating and proving and all sorts of things before the money actually moves from the government to pay back Goldman Sachs, who initially fronted the money. And yeah, this notion that if we just sort of shift something small, something big will result, I think is enticing. That if we just change how the money flows, the structures underneath will alter. It's also a way to do something. I don't know. I'm not the one who can or should say what's
right.
Like how it's an imperfectly stacked deck. Right. The notion of austerity is always way overplayed than what it in reality could be. But people are dealing with constraints, right? That's true of people in government, just as it's true of people in the nonprofit sector. And there's a series of tough choices about how you use limited resources, even though, right, we talk about them as if they're more limited than they truly are. Yeah, I don't have a great answer, but the sort of optimism and sense of the solutions just around the corner and that we can operate within more or less the confines, right? So much of this is based on the notion, right? The opportunity agenda of the 1960s looms large here, that largely our political economy is sound and that we just need to get people onto the ladder into it, right? That has been the underlying philosophy, gone by different names, gone by different sort of versions since then. I think nonprofits are wrapped up in the theory of the world that the political economy is basically sound. And we just need to get people into it rather than saying maybe it's a problem with our political economy and the racial capitalism that under sort of girds it.
To hear the full episode, become a patron at patreon.com/deathpanelpod. You'll get access to this and the rest of our catalog of patron-only episodes, and be the first to get a new patron episode every Monday when it drops. With love, the Death Panel.